Why do you always seem to react the same way in certain situations, even when you promise yourself you'll handle it differently next time? You know that moment when your partner says something and you immediately snap back, or your kid pushes your buttons and you lose it, or someone cuts you off in traffic and you're furious for the next hour? Then later you're thinking, why did I do that again? If you've ever laid awake at night, replaying a conversation and wishing you could take back what you said, or felt that sinking feeling in your stomach after exploding at someone you love, you're definitely not the only one. In fact, every single person watching this video has been there. The difference between people who seem to stay calm under pressure and those who feel like they're constantly losing control isn't what you might think. Here's what's really wild. Your brain is making split-second decisions about how to react before you even realize what's happening. And those decisions are based on information that might be completely wrong. But once you understand how this process actually works, you can completely change your relationship with your own emotions. And I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. But first, let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed that you can handle certain situations perfectly fine, but then something seemingly small happens and you completely lose it? Maybe your friend cancels plans last minute and you're devastated. Maybe your spouse leaves dishes in the sink and you're instantly annoyed. Maybe someone gives you feedback and you immediately get defensive. What if I told you that your reaction in those moments has almost nothing to do with what actually just happened? What if the real reason you react the way you do is buried so deep in your unconscious mind that you don't even know it's there? And what if you could learn to access that information and use it to completely transform how you show up in your relationships? That's exactly what we're going to explore today. But before we get into the science behind why you react the way you do, I need to tell you about something that most people get completely wrong. They think reactions and responses are the same thing. They're not. And understanding the difference is going to change everything for you. Most people use the words reaction and response like they mean the same thing, but they're actually describing two completely different processes happening in your brain. And once you understand this distinction, you'll start to see why some people seem naturally calm and collected, while others feel like they're constantly at the mercy of their emotions. A reaction is automatic. It happens without your permission and usually without your awareness until it's already too late. It's emotional, unconscious, and driven by parts of your brain that are trying to protect you from perceived threats. When you react, you're not really choosing your behavior. You're just following a pre-programmed script that your brain wrote based on past experiences. A response, on the other hand, is conscious and intentional. It involves a pause between what happens to you and what you do about it. When you respond, you're actually choosing your behavior based on your values and goals, not just your immediate emotional impulses. Here's a simple example that probably sounds familiar. Your teenager comes home an hour past curfew without calling. A reaction might be immediately launching into a lecture about responsibility, while you're still feeling that surge of worry and anger. A response would be taking a breath, noticing that you're feeling scared and frustrated, and then choosing how to address the situation in a way that actually teaches them something instead of just venting your emotions. The difference between these two approaches can literally make or break your relationships. When you react, you're operating from a place of protection and survival. When you respond, you're operating from a place of connection and problem solving. But here's what's really fascinating. Most people think that some people are just naturally calm and others are naturally reactive. That's not true. The ability to respond instead of react is a skill that can be learned. But to develop that skill, you first need to understand what's happening in your brain when you get triggered. And what's happening in your brain is absolutely wild. You have two different systems running at the same time, and they're often in competition with each other. One system is fast, emotional, and designed to keep you alive. The other is slow, logical, and designed to help you thrive. The problem is, the fast system often hijacks the slow one before you even know there's a problem. This fast system is called your limbic system. and it includes a small almond-shaped structure called the amygdala. Think of your amygdala as your personal bodyguard. It's constantly scanning your environment for potential threats. And when it detects something that might be dangerous, it triggers what we call the fight, flight, or freeze response faster than you can consciously think. When this happens, your heart rate increases, stress hormones flood your system, your muscles tense up, and your thinking becomes narrow and focused on survival. This response can happen in milliseconds, way before your logical mind even knows what's going on. Meanwhile, your prefrontal cortex, which is the thinking part of your brain responsible for logic, planning, and emotional regulation, gets overwhelmed and essentially goes offline. This is why you can't think clearly when you're upset. It's not a character flaw, it's just how your brain is designed. But here's the really important part. Your amygdala can't tell the difference between a real physical threat and a perceived emotional threat. So when your mother-in-law makes a comment about your parenting, your brain might respond as if you're being physically attacked. When your friend doesn't text you back right away, your nervous system might treat it like a life or death situation. This system worked great for our ancestors when their biggest worry was avoiding predators. But in today's world, it can create a lot of unnecessary drama and damaged relationships. But wait, it gets even more interesting. Your limbic system doesn't just respond to what's happening right now, it's also influenced by everything that's ever happened to you in the past. Every experience you've had gets stored in your unconscious mind as what psychologists call implicit memories. These implicit memories act like filters, automatically categorizing new experiences as safe or unsafe based on past events. So if you had a parent who was critical when you were growing up, your brain might automatically interpret any feedback as an attack, even when it's not. If you were betrayed by a friend in high school, your nervous system might go on high alert whenever someone doesn't follow through on a commitment. This is why two people can experience the exact same situation and have completely different reactions. One person's brain might categorize a difficult conversation as an opportunity for growth, while another person's brain categorizes it as a threat to their safety or worth. But here's what's really liberating about understanding this process. Your reactions aren't facts about the situation. They're just your brain's best guess about what's happening based on limited information and past experiences. And once you understand that, you can start to question those automatic responses and choose better ones. But how do you actually do that? How do you catch these reactions before they take over? And more importantly, how do you change patterns that might have been running for years or even decades? The first step is developing what psychologists call metacognition, which is basically thinking about thinking. You need to become aware of your own mental and emotional patterns. Most people go through life on autopilot, never really paying attention to what's happening in their inner world until something goes wrong. But what if you could develop an early warning system? What if you could catch yourself getting triggered before you say or do something you regret? You can, and it starts with learning to recognize your personal triggers. These are the specific situations, words, behaviors, or even environments that consistently provoke strong reactions in you. Everyone has different triggers because everyone has different histories and different wounds. Some people get triggered by feeling ignored or dismissed. Others get triggered by feeling controlled or micromanaged. Some people react strongly to criticism. Others react to feeling excluded or left out. Some people get triggered by loud noises or chaotic environments. Others get triggered by silence or withdrawal. The key is figuring out what your specific triggers are, because once you know them, you can prepare for them. You can develop strategies for handling those situations before you're in the middle of them, with your stress hormones flooding your system. So how do you identify your triggers? Start paying attention to the situations that consistently upset you. Notice the moments when you feel that familiar surge of anger, hurt, fear, or frustration. Ask yourself, what just happened? What did I see, hear, or experience right before I started feeling this way? Also, pay attention to the physical sensations that accompany these emotional reactions. Do you feel tension in your shoulders? Does your jaw clench? Do you feel heat in your face or chest? Does your stomach drop? These physical signals often show up before you're consciously aware of your emotional state. so they can serve as early warning systems. And here's something really important. Pay attention to the thoughts that go through your mind during these moments. Are you thinking things like, they don't care about me, this always happens, I can't trust anyone, they're doing this on purpose, or I'm not good enough? These automatic thoughts often reveal the deeper beliefs and fears that are driving your reactions. But knowing your triggers is only the first step. The real magic happens when you learn to create what I call the pause. This is a brief moment of space between what happens to you and how you respond to it. In that pause, you have choices. Without it, you're just a victim of your automatic programming. And this is where most people think they need to meditate for hours or become some kind of Zen master. That's not true. The pause doesn't have to be long or complicated. Sometimes it's just taking one deep breath before you speak. Sometimes it's counting to 3 in your head. Sometimes it's excusing yourself to the bathroom for a minute to collect your thoughts. The key is creating enough space for your prefrontal cortex to come back online, and for you to remember that you have options. Because here's what most people don't realize. Between every trigger and every reaction, there's a choice point. Most of the time we miss it because we're not paying attention. But when you learn to catch that moment, everything changes. This is where mindfulness becomes incredibly practical. And I'm not talking about sitting in meditation for hours, although that can be helpful. At its core, mindfulness is simply paying attention to what's happening in the present moment without immediately judging it or trying to fix it. When you feel that surge of emotion starting to build, instead of automatically acting on it, you can pause and notice what's happening. You might think to yourself, I'm feeling defensive right now, or I notice my heart rate is increasing, or I'm having the thought that this person doesn't respect me. This simple act of noticing and naming what's happening starts to change your relationship with your emotions. Instead of being overwhelmed by them, you begin to observe them with some distance and curiosity. And in that space of observation, you regain your power to choose how you want to respond. What do you actually do in that pause? How do you calm down your nervous system and access your wise, thoughtful mind instead of your reactive, defensive mind? This is where it gets really practical. One of the most effective techniques is conscious breathing. When you're stressed or triggered, your breathing becomes shallow and rapid, which actually reinforces the stress response. Your brain interprets rapid breathing as a sign that you're in danger, which keeps the whole stress cycle going. By deliberately slowing down and deepening your breath, you send a signal to your nervous system that you're safe and can shift out of survival mode. Try this simple technique. Breathe in for a count of 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 6, and hold for 2. The longer exhale is key because it activates your parasympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for the rest and digest response that counteracts fight or flight. Another powerful tool is grounding. This involves connecting with your physical environment to pull your attention away from your spinning thoughts and back into the present moment. You might notice 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. This technique interrupts the stress response and helps you regain perspective. You can also use what cognitive behavioral therapists call cognitive reframing. This involves questioning your initial interpretation of events and looking for alternative explanations. Instead of thinking, this person is attacking me, you might consider, this person seems stressed about something and might be taking it out on me, but it's probably not really about me. Or they might be trying to help, but don't know how to say it in a way that doesn't sound critical. The goal isn't to talk yourself out of your feelings or pretend everything is fine when it's not. The goal is to see the situation more clearly and respond from a place of wisdom rather than wound. But here's where it gets really interesting. Once you've created that pause and regulated your nervous system, you're in a position to choose a response that actually serves your goals and values. This is where your strategic mind can take over from your reactive mind. Ask yourself, what outcome do I actually want from this situation? Do I want to be right, or do I want to maintain this relationship? Do I want to vent my frustration, or do I want to solve the problem? Do I want to protect my ego, Or do I want to understand what's really going on? Often we react in ways that feel good in the moment, but don't serve our larger objectives. Telling your spouse exactly what you think of their annoying habit might feel satisfying, but it probably won't improve your relationship. Snapping at your kid when they're being difficult might relieve your frustration, but it won't teach them better behavior. Instead, you can respond in ways that address the underlying issue while maintaining the relationship. You might say something like, "I can see that you're upset about something, and I want to understand what's going on. Can we talk about this when we're both feeling calmer?" Or, "I notice I'm feeling frustrated right now, so I'm going to take a few minutes to cool down and then we can figure this out together." This type of response acknowledges what's happening, demonstrates that you're aware of your own emotional state, and moves the conversation toward problem solving rather than blame or defensiveness. It also models emotional regulation for the other person, which often helps them calm down too. The more you practice this process of pause, regulate, and respond, the more natural it becomes. You start to develop what researchers call emotional agility, which is the ability to navigate your emotions in ways that serve your values and goals, rather than just your immediate impulses. But here's something really important to understand. Changing these patterns takes time and practice. Your brain has been running these automatic programs for years or even decades. You're essentially rewiring neural pathways, and that doesn't happen overnight. Be patient with yourself during this process. You're going to slip up and react in old ways sometimes. That's not failure. That's just part of learning. The key is to notice when it happens, learn from it, and commit to doing better next time. It also helps to practice these skills when you're calm and not triggered. Think of it like learning to drive a car. You don't wait until you're in an emergency situation to practice. You develop the skills gradually in low-pressure situations, so they're available to you when you need them most. You can practice the pause technique during everyday moments. When your phone buzzes with a notification, pause for a breath before checking it. When someone cuts you off in traffic, pause and notice your reaction before honking or getting angry. When you receive a text that annoys you, pause before typing a reply. These small moments of practice build your capacity to pause in bigger, more important situations. You're literally strengthening the neural pathways that support conscious choice over automatic reaction. It's also worth examining the deeper beliefs and patterns that might be driving your reactions. Sometimes our triggers are connected to core beliefs about ourselves, other people, or the world that we formed early in life and never questioned. For example, if you have a deep belief that you have to be perfect to be loved, you might react very strongly to any criticism or mistake. If you believe that people can't be trusted, you might interpret neutral comments as attacks. If you believe that you're not important, you might react intensely when someone doesn't give you attention. Working with a skilled therapist or coach can be incredibly helpful for uncovering and updating these deeper patterns. But you can also start to explore them on your own by getting curious about your reactions and asking yourself what they might be protecting or defending. Remember, these reactive patterns developed for good reasons. They were your brain's way of keeping you safe in situations where you had limited power or resources. The problem is that they often outlive their usefulness and start creating problems in contexts where they're no longer needed. As you develop greater awareness of your triggers and more skill in managing your responses, you'll likely notice changes in other areas of your life too. Your relationships will improve because people will experience you as more present and less reactive. Your stress levels will decrease because you're not constantly in fight or flight mode. Your decision-making will improve because you're operating from your wise mind instead of your wounded mind. You might also notice that you become more resilient in the face of challenges. Instead of being derailed by difficult situations, you'll be able to stay grounded and respond effectively. This resilience becomes a huge advantage in life because you can navigate complex situations without losing your composure or damaging relationships. The people in your life will notice these changes too. They'll experience you as more trustworthy and reliable because they know you won't fly off the handle or make decisions based on emotion. They'll feel safer bringing you problems or concerns because they know you'll respond thoughtfully rather than reactively. This doesn't mean you become emotionless or detached. Emotions are valuable sources of information, and passion and enthusiasm are important parts of being human. The difference is that you're choosing how to express your emotions, rather than being controlled by them. You might still feel frustrated when plans get canceled or disappointed when someone lets you down. But instead of that frustration or disappointment driving your behavior, you can acknowledge the feeling and then choose how to respond in a way that serves your relationships and values. Over time, this practice fundamentally changes your relationship with stress and challenge. Instead of seeing difficult situations as threats to be avoided or fought, you start to see them as opportunities to practice your skills and demonstrate your growth. This shift in perspective is incredibly powerful because it moves you from a victim mentality to an empowered mentality. Instead of feeling like things happen to you, you start to feel like you have agency and choice in how you respond to whatever happens. As you continue to develop these skills, you might find it helpful to create what I call a response toolkit. This is a collection of specific strategies and phrases that you can draw on in challenging situations. For example, you might develop a few go-to phrases for when you need to buy yourself time to think. Something like, "That's interesting, let me think about that for a moment," or "I want to give you a thoughtful response to that. Can I get back to you in a few minutes?" Or, "I can see this is important to you. Help me understand what you're most concerned about." You might also create a mental checklist of questions to ask yourself when you feel triggered. Questions like, what is this person really trying to communicate? What outcome do I want from this interaction? How can I respond in a way that honors both of our needs? What would my wisest self do in this situation? Having these tools prepared in advance means you don't have to create them in the heat of the moment when your thinking is compromised. It's like having a fire extinguisher in your kitchen. You hope you never need it, but if you do, you're prepared. It's also important to take care of your overall stress levels and nervous system health. When you're chronically stressed, overwhelmed, or depleted, you're much more likely to react rather than respond. Your emotional reserves are low, and your tolerance for frustration decreases. This means paying attention to basics like sleep, nutrition, exercise, and downtime. It means setting boundaries around your time and energy. It means having practices that help you discharge stress and regulate your nervous system on a regular basis. Some people find that regular exercise is crucial for their emotional regulation. Others need meditation, prayer, or time in nature. Some people need creative pursuits or social connection. The key is finding what works for you and making it a non-negotiable part of your routine. You might also consider the environmental factors that contribute to your reactivity. Are there certain times of day when you're more likely to get triggered? Are there particular people or situations that consistently push your buttons? Are there changes you can make to your schedule, environment, or communication patterns that would reduce unnecessary stress? Sometimes the most effective intervention is prevention. If you know that being hungry makes you more irritable, you might pack snacks. If you know that certain topics always lead to arguments with your partner, you might agree on a better time and place to discuss them. If you know that social media makes you feel anxious, you might limit your exposure. The goal isn't to avoid all challenging situations, because that's neither possible nor desirable. Growth and connection require you to navigate difficult conversations and complex emotions. The goal is to show up to those situations in the best possible state so you can respond effectively. As you implement these strategies, be sure to celebrate the wins along the way. Notice when you catch yourself starting to react, and successfully pause instead. Acknowledge when you handle a difficult conversation more skillfully than you would have in the past. Recognize when you choose a response that shows your values rather than just venting your emotions. These moments of conscious choice are worth celebrating because they represent real growth and skill development. Each time you choose response over reaction, you're strengthening your capacity to do it again in the future. Remember that mastering your reactions isn't about becoming perfect or never feeling triggered. It's about developing the awareness and skills to navigate your emotional life in a way that serves your relationships and values. It's about becoming someone who can stay grounded and effective even in challenging situations. This work has a ripple effect that extends far beyond your immediate relationships. When you model emotional regulation and conscious response, you give others permission to do the same. You create environments where people feel safe to be honest, to bring up problems, and to work through conflicts, because they trust that you'll respond thoughtfully rather than reactively. You also model for others what it looks like to take responsibility for your own emotional state, rather than making other people responsible for managing your reactions. This creates healthier, more authentic relationships and sets a standard that attracts high-quality people into your life. The skills you develop through this work serve you in every area of life. Your family relationships improve when you stop taking your stress out on the people closest to you. Your friendships deepen when you can handle conflict without becoming defensive or attacking. Your parenting becomes more effective when you can stay calm and connected even when your kids are pushing every button you have. Perhaps most importantly, you develop a sense of confidence and inner stability that doesn't depend on external circumstances. You know that no matter what happens, you have the tools to handle it effectively. This kind of unshakable confidence is magnetic and inspiring to others. If this video helped you understand your reactions better, make sure you're subscribed to the channel, because we're constantly sharing strategies that help people navigate the emotional challenges of relationships, parenting, and personal growth. Hit that bell icon so you get notified whenever we post new content that can help you build stronger relationships and feel more confident in challenging situations. And if you know someone who struggles with staying calm under pressure or tends to react emotionally and then regret it later, share this video with them. Sometimes the most powerful gift you can give someone is helping them understand that their reactions are normal and manageable. Take a few minutes to explore the other videos on this channel too. We've covered everything from communication strategies to stress management techniques, to relationships, and even dealing with your inner child. And they're all designed to help you show up as your best self in your relationships and daily life. Your reactions don't have to control your life or your relationships. With understanding, practice, and the right tools, you can learn to pause, regulate, and respond in ways that serve your highest values and goals. The question isn't whether you'll face difficult situations and challenging emotions, because you absolutely will. The question is whether you'll react automatically or respond consciously. The choice, as always, is yours.